Beneath the polished exterior of arrogance and manipulation lies a deep, echoing emptiness, a hollow space they constantly try to fill. What they crave more than anything is control. Not just control over circumstances, but control over people, especially those who once cared about them. And why is that? Because a narcissist's sense of identity isn't grounded in any real inner stability. It's entirely external. They rely on an endless flow of validation, admiration, or even conflict to uphold the shaky illusion of their superiority. Without that constant supply, their facade begins to fall apart. This is exactly why your emotional detachment, your decision to stop playing their game, cuts them so deeply. When you finally detach from a narcissist, you're doing something they cannot understand, accept, or cope with. You're taking your power back, and it doesn't require arguing, yelling, or dramatic scenes. In fact, those behaviors only feed them. They thrive on the emotional energy you invest in them, whether positive or negative. What disturbs a narcissist the most is your indifference. When you stop reacting, when their presence, their words, their actions fail to move you, it hits them at the center of their biggest insecurity, the fear that they are fundamentally insignificant. Think about how a narcissist views the world. Every relationship is transactional. You're not seen as a person with your own experiences, emotions, or inner value. You are simply an instrument, something to extract supply from. If you admire them, they feel uplifted. If you argue, they feel dominant. Even if you despise them, at least your attention is still focused on them. But indifference? That is a completely different reality. It means they no longer influence you. And for someone who survives by controlling the emotional atmosphere around them, that is devastating. Detachment is powerful because it reveals a truth they cannot bear to face, that you are independent. You exist beyond their reach. When you withdraw emotionally, you force them to confront the fact that their manipulation no longer dictates your emotional world. This is threatening not only because it breaks their sense of dominance, but because it challenges the story they tell themselves, that they are superior, irreplaceable, and more important than anyone else. If you can walk away with your inner world intact, it implies they were never as powerful as they imagined. There's also something deeper, something almost philosophical happening when you detach. You reclaim your dignity. When you stay entangled with a narcissist and keep reacting, you allow them to shape your inner state. But when you disengage, you're asserting a profound truth. Your worth isn't based on their approval, disapproval, or recognition. You are not a puppet in their internal drama. You are a sovereign human being who can choose their emotional reality. But make no mistake, emotional detachment is not passive. It is a deliberate act of strength. It requires you to face your own desire for closure, your longing to be understood, your wish that they might one day apologize or acknowledge the pain they caused. Because here is the hard truth. You will never get closure from a narcissist. They will never admit wrongdoing. They will never validate your hurt. They will never take responsibility. And accepting that is part of what makes detachment so challenging. You must take your healing back into your own hands. There is a strange paradox in this journey. The more you try to make a narcissist understand the damage they inflicted, the more power you unintentionally give them. But the moment you stop trying, when you detach and move forward, they lose all influence over you. Walking away becomes the ultimate reversal. You no longer chase their validation, and without that, they lose the fuel they've depended on. Their biggest fear is not being hated. Hatred still means they matter. Their greatest fear is being irrelevant. Indifference shows them that you have stepped out of their psychological arena. And once your emotions no longer revolve around them, once their opinions carry no weight, they are left with nothing but the emptiness they've always avoided. This is why detachment is liberation. It's not only an escape from their manipulation, it's the restoration of your inner world. You are no longer trapped in their emotional labyrinth. You reclaim your identity, your peace, your self-respect. And that inner freedom is something a narcissist cannot comprehend, let alone achieve. Here is the most telling truth. When you detach, you force the narcissist to confront their own hollowness. Without your emotional energy to sustain the illusion of their superiority, they're left with the void they've tried to outrun their entire lives. And though they may never admit it, deep down they know they lost the moment you stopped caring. The greatest power move you can make is not to retaliate, not to explain, not to plead for understanding. It is to walk away with your dignity untouched. Let them sit in the silence you leave behind, because that silence will echo louder than anything you could ever say. Understanding the narcissist's dependence on external validation reveals something essential. Without your emotional involvement, the identity they constructed begins to collapse. A narcissist is not self-sustaining. Their sense of worth is not rooted in anything authentic or stable. It exists only in the reactions they extract from others. That's why your withdrawal, your choice to leave, becomes such a monumental threat to their internal balance. It's not just that you're leaving physically, it's the loss of what your presence provided, the psychological fuel they depended on. At the heart of this dynamic is narcissistic supply, the attention, admiration, and emotional responses they require to keep their inflated self-image alive. They cannot function without it. Without a consistent stream of validation, their grandiosity starts to unravel, and the feelings they've buried, shame, emptiness, inadequacy, rise to the surface. When you interact with them, whether with affection, conflict, or anger, you're feeding that need. But when you walk away, you cut off their supply completely. And that absence destabilizes them more than anything else ever could. What's even more painful for them is the nature of the loss. You're not just leaving a relationship, you're taking away their ability to define themselves through you. Narcissists don't build relationships based on love or mutual care. They build them based on control. As long as you were in their orbit, they controlled the emotional climate. They shaped how you viewed yourself, them, and the world. By walking away, you reclaim that control for yourself and strip them of the illusion that they can manipulate others indefinitely. And here is the truth that wounds them the most. The narcissist needs you far more than you ever needed them. They will never admit it, because admitting that would shatter their false sense of superiority. But it remains true. While you may hurt after the relationship, you remain capable of healing, rebuilding, and rediscovering yourself. You possess an inner world that exists independent of anyone else's validation. The narcissist does not. They are trapped in a psychological prison where their identity relies on others. When you walk away, you force them to face that emptiness without distraction. To a narcissist, being ignored doesn't feel like an insult. It feels like annihilation. It's not simply bruised pride, it's an existential crisis. Their entire sense of identity depends on external reactions. Without them, they must face the truth that beneath the mask, nothing substantial exists. This is why your silence cuts deeper than any confrontation ever could. Silence forces them to encounter the void within themselves. This is also why the narcissist often reacts with desperation when they feel you slipping away. They might try charm, guilt, manipulation, or even sudden affection. But none of this is genuine remorse. It's self-preservation. They are not mourning the loss of you as a person. They are mourning the loss of their access to your emotional energy. And the more firmly you hold your boundaries, the more frantic they become. This is the moment where your power becomes undeniable. By refusing to return, you deprive them of the one thing they cannot function without: control over your emotional reality. But the deeper truth is that walking away is not just about what it does to them. It's about what it does for you. It's the restoration of your autonomy. While you were entangled with them, your inner world was shaped by their whims, their moods, their manipulations. You doubted yourself. You compromised your needs. You may have believed that you needed them to be whole. But walking away shatters that illusion. You prove to yourself that your worth is not dependent on another person's view of you. There is profound freedom in realizing that you owe nothing to someone who only sought to diminish you. And that freedom is something the narcissist will never taste. They remain imprisoned in their own endless need for validation while you are learning what it means to be whole again. By leaving, you don't only reclaim your life, you affirm your dignity, your value, and your right to exist without emotional manipulation. And here lies the final paradox. After all the tactics they use to control you, the narcissist ultimately loses you completely, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. When you walk away with your self-worth intact, you deny them the satisfaction of having left permanent damage. Your healing becomes evidence of their failure. Nothing devastates a narcissist more than knowing you moved on and are thriving in a life where their influence no longer matters. The most powerful act of defiance is not revenge or confrontation. It is the quiet, resolute decision to walk away and never look back. Because once you do, they lose the only real power they ever held: the ability to shape how you see yourself. And when that power is gone, all that remains is their own emptiness. And that is the most fitting consequence of all.